Alright, this is Tom Purvis, and the title of this video is Octave Mandolin. And I'm recording this with my Zoom Q8n-4K. It's been about a month since I've done a video with this. I attempted to record our band on St. Patrick's Day, and I had used the built-in XY microphones, and I plugged in some additional inputs from the sound system and had high hopes for everything, but I believe that there was a shift in the direction of the camera and pointed more towards a window, and it dimmed the overall video. Sound is pretty good, but I may try and take a portion of that and post it just so you guys can see what that particular situation's like. I have plans to do some more streaming. Right now I'm just trying to get more familiar with things, but I'd like to do some streaming with our band from the Patriarch here in Edmond, Oklahoma. So anyway, I want to demonstrate to you the octave mandolin along with a couple of other instruments that are tuned exactly the same way, and kind of talk about the progression that I had to get to the octave mandolin. So I started out actually playing the regular mandolin. I still have one. Everybody knows what that sounds like, and I don't know that I'm going to bother bringing that out. I'm actually going to show you three instruments, and those are very different than what most people experience unless they're familiar with Irish music, and then potentially, you know, maybe some bluegrass or something like that. But I do most of my playing with this tenor banjo, and this is a 1927 Vega Professional. Wasn't very expensive when you consider cost of instruments. I think I spent maybe $600 on it. I've spent half as much of that on the case to protect it. But it's an instrument that has a metal tone ring. I've played my other tenor banjo made by Deering a few times, and that doesn't have a tone ring, and you may or may not hear a difference in that. But what I want to do is I'll play through a little bit of a tune on this one, and then talk about the progression that tenor banjo players had to the tenor guitar. Now, the original tenor banjo was tuned in CGDA, like a viola or a cello, and it was usually played with chords in more of a jazz, and it was played, this instrument was used because it was very loud. Well, after the 40s or so, that type of instrumentation kind of came out of favor, and a lot of the tenor banjo players switched over to tenor guitar. And I'm going to show you my tenor guitar. Now, all three of my instruments I'm going to show you are tuned the same way. CGDA, same as the mandolin. Allows me to learn a tune in a particular tuning, and then potentially have three very different sounds. So let's start with, I think this is an old-timey tune. Cold Frosty Morning. I'll play just one time through the A, one time through the B, and then I'll show you what it sounds like on the tenor guitar, and then we're going to finish up with the octave mandolin. So this instrument is pretty loud. The bar that we play in has usually got quite a few people that are talking and having a good time, and there's 4 or 5 guitar players that are drowning out the melody players, and this can do a pretty good job of cutting through. So that's why I play this instrument almost all the time. But like I said, the progression from tenor banjo in the 40s went to the tenor guitar, and the reason why the tenor guitar was made was because there was a lot of tenor banjo players that were out of work and they needed an instrument that was not quite as harsh as the tenor banjo was. So this is a tenor guitar that I had made for me. It has a pickup in it, but we play acoustic on our weekly session, so I don't get a chance to plug it in, and it stays at home because nobody could hear it if I took it. But let me try and play Cold Frosty Morning for you on it. Now, I'll have to admit that the pick that you use makes a big difference. We're going to try that again with a little bit better quality pick. So I don't know if you can hear it or not, but one of the nice things about an instrument like this is the sustain that you get. So you can play a note and it'll hang in there for quite some time. You don't really get that with the banjo because you get quite a loud noise at initial attack, and then it pretty much just fades away from that point. So so the tenor, to me, the tenor guitar is a lot of fun. It's a great instrument to practice on. This particular one that was made for me, the neck was a little bit thicker than what I would probably like to have. It's a little difficult sometimes to go between instruments, but as you'll see, this is much thicker than the banjo. But the tenor, the octave mandolin is kind of in between the two, and it makes a pretty good instrument to kind of transition through. So this instrument's really nice for things other than fast tunes, so something like a Q8n Farewell. So, whereas this instrument's kind of nice to play around and practice with, it has to be plugged in if you have any sort of kind of projection with it. So, this is the octave mandolin. So, octave mandolin is a little bit shorter than some of the other instruments in overall scale length. The neck is somewhat in between the two, and it from a projection standpoint is kind of in between the two. So this is an instrument that also has a pickup in it. Banjo has a pickup in it too, but I usually don't need it. But this one has a pickup in it, and I will hopefully get a chance to play it more. It's still not really loud enough to make a difference, but it's an instrument that I do really enjoy playing. It was made for me by a gentleman in Maine, and I will put some information for him in the notes. Nick Apollonio, he's been making instruments for over 50 years and just makes a wide variety of interesting instruments. Octave mandolins are sometimes hard to get your hands on. Especially some when you try and find something for less than a couple thousand. So let's play Cold Frosty Morning again, and you can kind of hear the difference. this instrument also has pretty nice sustain. You can play notes. It chords very nicely. It's an instrument that you could do just has a to me, very interesting sound. The two strings together, you kind of get the, like I said, the mandolin sound, but an octave lower than the mandolin, and to me, a range that is really pretty nice. So this is the, as I said, this is the octave mandolin. I'm going ahead and I'll play Hector the Hero, I think, on it. So I really like the octave mandolin. I like the way it sounds. Would probably take it to the next gig that we plug into, and we'll try and play a few tunes on it. It is very susceptible to weather changes, and right now, a little bit of extra humidity that we're having is kind of is really reacting well with it. Requires probably a little bit more maintenance. In fact, it requires a lot more maintenance than my banjo does, just to keep all the strings and the neck position, everything like that in place. But it's, like I said, kind of a very different instrument, and one that I would recommend if you're a banjo player or a mandolin player and you wanted to have a very different sound. It's definitely an instrument that I'd recommend. So once again, this was streaming with the Zoom Q8n-4K using the standard capsule that comes on it with no additional microphones. And